It's my role then to introduce Ian Menzies, who many of you will already know, who's the lead for STEM and Learning for Sustainability at Education Scotland, to introduce what this new Learning for Sustainability action plan has for us all. Ian, over to you.
Thanks very much, Betsy, and it's a real pleasure to be with everyone here tonight. Thanks very much for joining us. So I've got a wee icebreaker as well, just to kick us off. If we can pass on to the next slide, please. I suppose my question is why? Do you know, why have you made time to be with us tonight? Why have you made time for Learning for Sustainability? And why do you see Learning for Sustainability as being important? And if you can put your answers in the chat, but don't hit the submit or send button for just now. We'll do it all at the same time. I'll just give you 30 seconds. So if you just start to type your answers into the chat and do not hit the send button. We'll just do it as a waterfall all at the same time. And I'll leave space as well. Maybe it's not important. Maybe you're in the wrong place. Maybe you're just curious. Maybe you've got other views as well. So feel free to put any views into the chat. Okay, 10 more seconds. Everybody's furiously trying to correct all the typos because you've been typing fast. Okay, when you're ready, feel free just to hit the send button. We'll just see what comes up. Okay, lovely to see the messages there. Our collective future, essential topic for the future of the planet. Oh, anybody getting a wee bit of feedback there? Just in terms of microphones, yeah. Great. So listen, thank you so much for everybody for all your comments. It's really lovely to see yourself motivations for being here tonight and your reasons for attending. I think it's really important to focus on the why. Do you know, when we have these conversations, we have wonderful conversations within schools with practitioners across Scotland, and what we're really getting a sense is people understanding and commitment to the issue, and I suppose realization about how important it is, especially after all the things we've seen over the summer on our TVs and the way that climate change, for instance, is impacting on the world as well as the nature crisis. Okay, next slide, please, Kirsten. So this is exactly why we're launching an inspiring movement of change. We launched our Learning for Sustainability Action Plan with the Cabinet Secretary in June this year. And our big ambition through this movement of change is to make sure all 3 to 18 education and learning settings in Scotland are sustainable by 2030, and to make sure that all learners receive their entitlement to learning for sustainability. So this is a big movement of changes taking place, and over the course of this coming week, we'll be sort of launching this national call to action. Next slide, please, Kirsten. So the national call to action should go out on Thursday afternoon with the Cabinet Secretary's support. And again, what we'd really love you to do within your schools, within your settings, is really look at how you can support that, how you can build a movement at classroom level, how you can build a movement at departmental level, and certainly at whole school, whole community level as well. We have to start somewhere. Let's start small. Let's do what we can within our school settings, within our classrooms, with the learners we work with day in, day out, and we build from there. And I think what we're really trying to do with this idea of a movement is really connect with people's heads, hands and hearts. And for those of you that joined the Scottish Learning Festival Conversations this week and maybe attended the session by Santiago Rincon Gallardo, that was very much what he was talking about, is building this sort of social movement for change and about the power of this type of social movement to transform education. And I was really struck, and maybe for those that attended, you might have been so too, about the connections between what he was saying and what we're trying to do through our inspiring movement for change around learning for sustainability. Next slide, please. And when we developed this action plan, we developed it the behest of the Cabinet Secretary, Miss Somerville at the time, and what she asked us to do was to very much bring about a step change in the way young people receive their entitlement. Young people were quite clear they weren't receiving their entitlement the way that they felt they should be, and they challenged us within the Scottish Government. We're challenging the Cabinet Secretary around that as well. I think we can take a lot of comfort from the incremental change we made over the last 10 years or so, but the Cabinet Secretary was quite clear that we really want to see a step change. And I think when we see what's happening around the world, we realise the importance of maybe accelerating progress in this area. And this is exactly what we're trying to do with this movement. We're trying to go viral, I suppose, see exponential change and increase and release people all across the system, people like you, to really bring this about. Next slide, please. And so we framed this inspiring call to action around 3 things, one of which is about people. And I suppose for all of us, the most important people in this equation are young people. And of course, many of them over this last year or so have been going on strike to really call for more learning for sustainability, more climate education, more outdoor learning within the school curriculum. And we need to stop and reflect on this at times. Do you know, when in our history have young people ever gone on strike because something wasn't part of the curriculum? Do you know, so they're sending this sort of message really powerful to us, that they realise the importance of this to their lives, to their future lives, and they really want it to be a core part of their learning experiences at school. Next slide, please. As well as about the people, do you know, let's not forget our vision. And again, Santiago Rincon Gallardo and the OECD and everybody said to Scotland, you've still got a world-leading curriculum, you've still got a pioneering curriculum, it's the right curriculum. It's a curriculum for the 21st century. And more needs to be done to take us back to our vision around the curriculum, the 4 capacities, our vision around the curriculum preparing young people for life in the 21st century, and some of the challenges we've talked about. So again, this is what our young people need from the curriculum. They need to be prepared for life in the 21st century. Next slide, please. And there was some lovely consultation reports done to support the development of an action plan. We took quite a bit of time, with people across the system, with teachers, with young people, to say, what are your views? What do you want from this? And I think a lot of this was captured beautifully in the findings from the Children's Parliament report about learning for sustainability. Young people told us really clearly they want to see more outdoor learning, but they want more sustainable development education and climate emergency training. And they recognise too that adults still have a lot to learn as well, but we're not the experts, we don't always get this. And so I think the really lovely bit for us was the fact that young people were saying to us they want to work in partnership with adults, and that we can't just push all the responsibility for fixing these issues onto them as young people, because they're not the decision makers just now, but they really want to work in partnership with us to try new things, develop new approaches as well. So really some powerful messages from our young people. Next slide, please, Kirsten. And this has come through strongly in the Scotland's Youth Climate Declaration, which came out through during COP26, Children's Climate Assembly again the same year, and through the Dundee University report, Young People, Practitioner and Perspectives in LFS. And I think it's worthwhile flagging these up to you. We can share these PowerPoints with all the links with you as well. Because I suppose we feel a sense of responsibility that we've taken time to speak to young people. They've taken the time to give us their views, and it's really important that we share those views as widely across the system as we can. And this is very much the genesis for this refreshed LFS action plan, to make sure we take those views on board and implement them widely across the curriculum. Next slide, please. And this is obviously all within the context of Scotland's journey to enshrine the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Child into our domestic law. We'll be the first country in the UK to do so when that happens. But really to put the views and the wishes of young people at the centre of what we do within education. So it's certainly within the context of the UNCRC. We want to make sure that we're really forming strong links between all of that work. They're not separate pieces of work. The UNCRC and also learning for sustainability, they're very much connected. Next slide, please. And the planet, so we've done the people, the planet. We can see from the summer we're into uncharted territory with floods, with wildfires, with nature and climate emergency and so on. But that can be quite overwhelming at times. Next slide. And this is a big hoarding that I cycle past every day for the last 3 years during COVID. And I just find it really inspirational when I cycle past. I've never heard of this organisation before. But in the space of 2 years, they can turn that barren landscape into that, fertile grassland. Just a magnificent transformation. And I suppose for me, this is what the 4 capacities are about. This is what curriculum's about. These are the skills we need our learners to have in the 21st century: to innovate, to be resilient, to be creative, to never give up, to work collaboratively, to know and understand the world, to have strong values and beliefs. So this is what we're trying to do here. And I suppose that phrase down the bottom is really important. No trend is destiny. We can, I suppose, tend to despair at times, but we don't have to accept that. We can change the world, we can change our classrooms, we can change our communities, and it's about an empowerment and a message of hope. Next slide, please. Fast fashion is another area where there's real issues around pollution, around child labour, around greenhouse gas emissions, and so on. It has a massive impact on the environment, just the way we live our lives, the way we buy and use clothes and textiles. Next slide. Here's a company we're working with just along the road here from where I'm just now in Glasgow. It's in Eurocentral. It's ACS, Advanced Clothing Solutions. They're Europe's largest sustainable fashion hub. They're an inspiring company. They rethink the fashion industry. They reuse, repurpose, repair clothes. They keep clothes in the cycle using a circular economy approach, and they're really passionate about engaging with schools and with education as well. So again, here's an example of a green business, a company that's trying to do things differently, that's trying to shake things up, that's trying to start a revolution in fashion. And again, for me, this is the 4 capacities. This is what our movement for change has to do. How do we take examples like this and how do we grow them and extend them? Next slide, please. And let's not forget, there's fabulous opportunities here. The UK target is to create 2 million green jobs by 2030. We've got 30,000 electric vehicle charging points in the UK. We need 300,000 of them in the next few years. We need to repair 250,000 hectares of peatland to trap the carbon across Scotland. It's going to need a lot of people to do that. We need to transform our agriculture, train people in maintaining electric vehicles, a whole new skill set that many garages and mechanics won't have. Insulate our homes. 2 million green jobs, and many of these jobs are more highly paid than the median average salary across the UK. And I suppose our big job to do is to make sure our young people, particularly those from our most deprived communities, can access those jobs. So really wonderful opportunities around green skills and our transition to net zero. So again, there's a big message of hope here. And green skills are going to be core to almost every job in the coming years, the next few years. So again, if we really want to prepare young people for the world of work, learning for sustainability, green skills, STEM skills are going to be fundamental. Next slide, please. So that was the people, planet, prosperity. The question is how. Next slide. We need to do different things differently. We can't do what we did over the last 10 years because we don't have the luxury now. We need to move quicker. We need to accelerate the pace of change. So we need to think differently and do things differently. What can that be? Next slide. We need to learn from the big movements that have made success, Make Poverty History, Me Too, Black Lives Matter, Fair Trade. Some of you might have been involved in them. I've been involved in some. Really inspirational. How can we learn from them? What can we take from them and apply within their own context, within our own classrooms? How do we build that social movement and empower and unleash our collective force for good? Next slide. Ken Muiring's report, which kicked off our whole reform agenda, said quite clearly that climate change, sustainability, outdoor learning must be recognised as key drivers in the future of our education system. And again, he referenced UNCRC, and that's because young people have said that message loud and clear in the consultation process around reform. So we've got a great opportunity through the reform agenda to do something different here as well. Really exciting opportunity. How are we going to make the most of that? Next slide. And if you think about all the reform documents, Scotland's Curriculum for Excellence into the future from the OECD, educating your future is, It's proposed as the banner for our curriculum from All Learners in Scotland Matter consultation. It's our future, the Hayward Review. So all these reform agendas are talking about the future. And I think sometimes we can talk about it quite glibly, but let's think about that future that our young people are going to have. The challenges, the opportunities, the skills they're going to need, and our opportunity just now is to prepare them for that future as best we can. So let's take time to think about the future. Next slide, please. And this came out really strongly, I suppose, in SLF this week for me, particularly from PAC-T yesterday, who was speaking. Teachers create the future. Teachers are nation builders. So the future is literally in our hands. We have the next generation of decision makers, innovators, inventors, change makers sitting in front of us day after day. So let's create a better future. One child, one classroom, one school at a time. Next slide, please. And Santiago talked about liberating learning, about bringing the joy back to learning, about freeing up learning from all the structures that inhibit us and tie us down. So how can we take this as a mantra? How do we liberate learning? And quite often when we talk about experiences and outcomes, we forget about the word experiences in there. And how do we give our young people these joyful, inspiring experiences day in and day out as part of our curriculum offering? Next slide, please. What about the pedagogy for the 21st century? So if as a society, as a world, we need to be fostering intellectual, social, moral capacities, if we need to build movements for change, if we need to develop empathy and compassion, what does our pedagogy have to be to enable that to happen? Do we just try and cover the course or cover the worksheets? Or do we try to move into a different space, a different approach, where we're bringing in problem-based learning, project-based learning, IDL, experiential learning, outdoor learning? So let's think about the pedagogy, and we've all got a chance and opportunity and the power to shape that in our own classrooms and context. Next slide, please. And one of the key things, we've got lots of actions to deliver on, about 25 actions as part of an action plan. One of the key things is a mentor network. So all of you on the call, any teacher, any practitioner across Scotland who wants support, has got ideas to share, wants to collaborate or network with others, we want to build in a sort of self-sustaining network nationally. We don't know how we're going to do that yet. If some of you would love to be part of that conversation, we want to involve teachers and stakeholders in that discussion to help us shape and to develop this. Please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. But I think we've got some big opportunity to do something special around this in partnership together. Next slide, please. And what we were doing in the meantime was trying to hardwire learning for sustainability into the very fabric of Scottish education. So, through the National Improvement Framework, the Scottish Attainment Challenge, funding, inspection, qualifications and pathways, we'll be looking at using opportunities to get LFS into the very fabric of what we're doing. Next slide, please. So how are we going to do it? A Team Scotland approach. I can't do it myself. Betsy, Kirsten can do it herself. GTCS can do it. We can do it on our own. It's a Team Scotland approach with that sort of strong target in mind, target 2030. Next slide. And if you want to stay informed, collaborate, if you want to stay in touch about the call to action going out Thursday afternoon, please watch out for Join the Practitioner Network on Glow. Watch out for us on Twitter. And we've also got the summary page in the National Improvement Hub. We're developing a page just now for the National Improvement Hub. So that's where to keep an eye out for all of those developments and resources when they go live. That's me. Thank you for your time. Thanks to Kirsten for passing on the slides.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ian, for that. I'm sure there are quite a number of questions that have come through and into people's minds. And we do have a few minutes for questions if anybody would like to ask any. If not, of course, we can go directly into small group conversations. So I'm looking to see if so Ailey, I think you're number one. You have put your hand up. Would you like to unmute yourself?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, I am Mailey Malcolm. I work for OWL Scotland and Scottish Forestry. So I'm really excited about the call to action and learning for sustainability moving forward. I think that having young people's voice at the heart of this is so important. And it's good that that's being acknowledged, because I don't think it was when I was younger. This is a much bigger question, and I don't think it can be answered today, but how do we keep young people motivated and feel like they've been listened to when there's projects like the Rosebank oil field that are getting approved, and it's completely out of our hands, but it's on the doorstep of young people. I just know this is a conversation that's come up in our household recently.
And I don't know who would like to tackle that one, Ian.
Yeah, I think it's a really great question, Ailey. It takes me back to the PISA Global Competence Report that was published in 2020, and for those of you who are aware, Scotland came out really, really well in that international survey. Of the 27 countries that took part, Scotland was in third place behind Canada and Singapore, if you like. Our young people really saw themselves as global citizens. They had really positive attitudes towards immigrants. They had respect for other cultures. So there was a lot of real positives for us. The one area where they said that Scotland was probably below the OECD average was that young people didn't have belief in themselves and that their actions would make a difference. And I think what it's saying is that a real sort of low level of sort of self-efficacy, and we see that in other surveys and stuff come through as well. So how do we keep young people engaged? I think we give them a chance to take action, to take achievable action in local areas, within their schools, within their communities, to have a sense of achievement from that. I think, yes, there'll be frustrations along the way. I think that's part of how we develop resilience and the skills that we need, and the problem solving skills and the creative thinking skills that we need. I think that's part of the journey, but I think giving young people a chance to mobilise, to take action, and to really believe they can make a difference, even in a small way, I think is how we keep them engaged. And also to help them understand that they've been listened to. And that's why, again, as part of the action plan, there's a commitment and an action. We'll have a children's leadership group set up to guide and steer the process, so that we're constantly getting that feedback from young people and giving them a chance to be engaged. So hopefully, that answers some way, but I agree there are big challenges there when we can see some of the decisions have been taken nationally around some of these agendas.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm aware that we're slightly short of time here, but there is another question which Mr. Brown has put in the chat, and I think you might want to tackle again this one, Ian. Let me get it again. Can LFS start to emerge more in DYW and NPA qualifications, so that there's some sort of a journey and gathering the skills towards the sort of future that we want?
Absolutely, yes. For people on the call, you may be interested to know we've got a Climate Emergency Skills Action Plan group nationally. It was chaired by the Minister, Miss Slater, just this week. So all the big agencies nationally, Education Scotland, SQA, SDS, the enterprise agencies, are all working collaboratively to really promote the green skills agenda. We recognise that there's massive opportunities here for our young people, and we don't want to miss out. And a lot of the data shows nationally Scotland's doing quite well. We've got quite a high proportion of our young people already into pathways in colleges and universities around green skills, but of course there's more that we can do. So absolutely, we want to tie up the agendas. We want to work closely with our DYW groups. I presented to them just a few weeks ago about this agenda, and many of them are active already. There's employment transition zones being set up in Aberdeen and Glasgow. I know there's green ports being set up in the Highlands. Our growth deals around Scotland, many of the growth deals are all about net zero and about the just transition. And our national strategy for economic transformation, Scotland's future economy, if you take a look at that document, is very much about net zero, about green energy and the transition to a green economy. So big opportunities, and whatever we can do in that area, it'd be great to work together. And certainly one of the big actions with an action plan is around Education Scotland, SDS, SEQF, SQA working together to get those pathways in place. And again, we really hope the reform agenda is going to deliver some really exciting potential around that.
Thank you. And I'm looking at the time again, but there are some questions that I'm sure more broadly it would be worth answering. And I think you've said a bit about this already, Ian, which was more information about the LFS Mentor Network, and essentially that it is a work in progress. But you did mention that you're looking for volunteers. So are you wanting people to contact you if they're interested in being involved in the development of that?
Absolutely. So I'll put my email into the chat just in a little second. So we've got to develop an online portal this year. We've got the mentor network we need to decide what that's going to look like and feel like and how it's going to operate. We've got other things as well, you know, in terms of a curriculum reform and how we can really develop a framework to put learning for sustainability at the heart of curriculum reform. So in all of these things, we need to draw on your expertise, your vision, your experience. So really, for everyone on the call tonight, it's an open invitation. If you'd like to be involved in that, to work with other teachers across Scotland, please let us know. Just send me an email.
So there are a number of other questions in the chat, and I don't know, Jack and Ian, whether you'd be willing to hang on and just maybe answer one or two of those as we go along, because I know that an important part of these sessions is actually getting into smaller group conversations so that everybody has got a chance to voice their views. So if you're willing, Jack and Ian, would that be fine?
Yes,
brilliant.
I can see there's some questions in terms of more details on what's happening on the 5th or 6th of October, because I'm aware, Ian, it does come out just as schools are galloping off for a well-earned October break as well.
I know, Jab, it was meant to be this week, but unfortunately with the school strikes, we had to push the day back, and we know that some schools in Tayside are already on in the holidays next week. It's just really unfortunate, it's just the way it happened.
And there will be more details, won't there, coming out on those days, whichever day it is?
Yep, we'll just let people know. We'll try and send out some pre-information at the start of next week, maybe Monday or Tuesday, just so people are aware of what's coming. But the main thrust of the call to action, you know, will be Thursday afternoon, we hope. All of this is obviously subject to different things, strikes, you name it, but Thursday afternoon is our target date for getting a call to action out.
Fantastic.